Hello, beautiful YouTube community. Today we're going to talk about walk-ins. What is a walk-in? What is it like to be a walk-in? What should you do if you're a walk-in? And I hope to just share personal experiences and also to help any person who is just walking in, and I know that it can be a huge and overwhelming experience. And so I'd like to deliver this message. I feel like in my own process, I'm now to a place where I'm able to talk about it and I've come to acceptance of it, the event of it. And I feel like, yeah, it's time to talk about it because I feel ready to talk about it. So in 2019, I had this experience where I had a full-blown shaking Kundalini awakening for a long time. And at the end of the experience, I had what felt like to me, it was a pattern, a frequency pattern, but it kind of was like the most turquoise butterfly flapping wings of sacred geometry pattern, like a storm rolling, like this energy frequency rolled through my body. And I heard, "You've been touched by grace." It was the most blissful, loving, compassionate, just like pure peace energy that I've ever felt, even to this day. And right after that happened, I felt the bottom of my feet. I felt like basically my soul detached, and it sucked up through my body, like my spinal column, went out through the crown of my head. And I was very aware that there was another being on the left side of me. And this being came and sat into my body, like took residence. And you know, at the time, I just didn't even know of such things, to be honest. So I'd never heard of a walk-in. I didn't have any context for what had happened, but I did experience it and was conscious for what it was. And I even told the people that I was with, like, this just happened. And I remember feeling a sudden deep grief that I cannot explain. And I went out onto the lawn where I was, and I just remember putting my feet and hands down on the ground and just like crying, streaming tears. Like I knew something profound had happened, but I didn't technically understand it. So later in the evening, I'm driving home, and it's weird when you're walking because you still have your body and all of your neurological connections, but now you are carrying a different frequency. Now, through my walk-in studies, I've heard Bashar, if you guys know who Bashar is, he's a channeler. I've heard Bashar, Darrell Anka is his channeler, say that nothing can walk in that isn't your own unique soul source stream. So essentially, I've heard Bashar say that a higher octave of what you are and who you are in your fullness and beauty can walk in, but nothing can walk in that is like outside your soul stream. I've also heard different people say different to that. And as somebody who experienced this, I'll kind of explain how different it felt. And yeah, I guess that's just part of what I surrendered to in terms of like the mystery. But I remember getting home to my house and opening up my front door and walking in and thinking to myself, part of me like knows it's my home, I drove myself there, but this whole other part of me is thinking, whoa, I have a lot of books. And if anyone has a PhD in any literary subject, you know you have a lot of books by the decade end of your studies. So like, I have a lot of books, and I just remember looking at them and being like, whoa, I've got a lot of books. But the funny thing was, like, I didn't even like poetry anymore. In fact, I think for about a year and a half after my walk-in experience, I didn't even pick up a book of poetry and read. But what I did get interested in was blockchain and decentralized currency and cryptocurrency and studying and purchasing all this crypto. so this new part of me was like, had very different interests, also had like a very different personality. And, you know, people were like, I love how with the spiritual community is like, lose your ego. We don't want you to have any ego, but if you lose your ego too much, we're gonna call you insane. So, you know, we still need you to be who you are, but can you please, like, you know, it's just a lot. But I just was like in a state of surrender. I was also blissed out for, I would say, the first 9 months of my experience. I felt this like deep, abiding bliss and oneness that I had never really experienced in my life. And so even after that a little bit, but for sure for like those first 9 months, I was in a state of awareness that was really something I personally at that point in my life had never touched. I was 33 when this occurred. So end of my 33rd year, really. Well, not quite the end, but the last quarter. And so I think what I can say is that, you know, I've heard a woman I follow who's also a walk-in, I've heard her talk about when she walked in, her old life was like wiped clean. And I kind of felt that same experience of like, the old me was like wiped clean. But I remember getting into this place where everyone around me was starting to react to me so differently and like be like, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't even seem like yourself anymore. And I remember having this really rough day where like I got down on my hands and knees and prayed and like called, I just like prayed, can that part of me that left come back? And later on in my life, I call her my mentor. Her name's Celeste. She's a teacher of mine. She walked in at 33 and she said, she's such a talented woman, but she said what had happened in that moment when I had called out and said, this is too much, I can't handle this, is that my old soul stream or soul had come back and braided with what had walked in to try to make the transition a little bit easier and a little bit more soothing. So I think because I walked in without any knowledge of like what walk-ins are doing on the planet and why we're here and why it's like really important. And at that time in my life, I had no belief in interdimensional, extraterrestrial, multidimensional belief of alien life or anything like that. And so all of these things was like a very quick learning curve. Luckily, I am a fast learner and I'm able to assimilate a lot of, I would say, I guess, advancements quickly. But even with my ability to be quite proficient in learning, it still felt extremely overwhelming for my current belief system to try to have to switch paradigms like overnight in that way without any support and without, and the interesting thing, and any person who has walked in has shared this experience, the people in your life that you've been like, you know, resonating with, you're suddenly at a completely different octave and frequency, and it's hard for your body to adjust, but your energetics is just different at that point. And so you repel so many people, but then you also attract in a whole new group of people, and that allows you to complete your mission. If you have a mission, if you have a walk-in, like this is a really important time and you have a strong mission. So if you've walked in, what I would say to you is you are gonna feel this sense of like, I'm losing control, I have no control. You are gonna feel this sense of like, I don't know who I am. You are gonna feel this huge loss of ego identity. You are gonna feel confusion, and it is gonna be like overwhelming unless you're super prepared and understand more about it. These things are you're gonna feel this way. This is part of the process. But what has helped me is to really remember who and what we are as human beings, and why we're here, and why it is such a gift to be able to awaken into a consciousness that is more advanced, and also to take that evolutionary leap as a human being into your full potentiality. And it's not easy, and like I would just be a straight up liar if I was like to say that this is like an easy thing and people should want this. I think you only want this if it's just part of your soul contract and you've signed up for it pre-life. I have one thing that gives me just a little clue that I signed up for this. I was born with 2 different eyes, 2 different pupils. It's more noticeable if I'm getting sick or if it's low light. If I go out in bright light, my pupils will contract as they should, and it's less noticeable. But I have always had 2 different eyes. And they say eyes are window to the soul, and I feel like the reason that I have that is because I have this experience was in my soul contract. And you know, whether or not you have this experience and whether or not you fulfill it, I think that, you know, it just depends on where you are in your life path. Like, had I been and had everything that I wanted at 33, which was, I've wanted to be a mother since I was like a 5 or 6 year old. Like my whole life, I'd always really wanted to be a mother. And had I been a mother at 33, I don't think that this would have happened, because it couldn't happen. It wouldn't be good for a child. It wouldn't be good for anyone to experience this amount of extreme, challenging change. So I think I, you know, was able to do it just because of what my life was and like how free of a being that I had created a life to be. So, so it's not going to be easy. And if you are a mom or a dad and you're having a walk-in experience, like I would immediately say seek counseling, seek help. And don't only seek it for yourself, seek it for all the people in your life, because we are relational beings, and being a human is about your relations. And the people in your life, this is also deeply difficult for them. And my friend Tia, who's a walk-in, she like, you know, she's like, I don't know if I should tell my mom, like, I don't feel like you're my mom. For me, I feel like, you know, I do still feel I have integrated back into my physical form, into a place where like I honor all that I am. And part of what I am is this body in this here and now. And so my mom is my mom. My mom gave birth to this body. But for a while there, for years, and I think this is part of what a walk-in does, is it comes in to heal a lineage. So it has the tools and the skills and the ability to heal a lineage, to heal DNA. And so I'm calling it because it is like a foreign feeling. I want to call it, and it's so genderless. Like it's I could call it her, I could call it him, but in my experience, it's just not either of those. It's a experience beyond the individualized self and the human personality in so much potency and power that it just feels almost like, you know, a Kundalini awakening in itself is, another way you could think of it is like a possession of Shakti, Kundalini, energy of Shakti, the goddess awakens within you, and then you start moving to the beat and drum of the goddess. So this, in a company with having a really high dimensional star walk-in happen, these 2 things combined at the same time, it was like a very, again, like I've said it on the channel, like I wouldn't wish it upon anyone because of the difficultness of it. But now that I've processed it, and I found the proper counseling, and I found the proper teachers, and I have friends who've also experienced it, now I have the context and ability to talk about it and to understand that it's actually a beautiful thing if more people had understanding and education and support and guidance and didn't have to experience the emotional abuse and abandonment of these experiences. And, you know, this life I've always struggled with rejection. And it just started young for me. You know, like I was born into a predominantly one religion community, and my family was not of that religion, and it was in the 80s, and that was really strange. And from the time I was a little girl, I had experiences of, you know, not being welcomed at like friends' birthday parties because I wasn't of a certain faith, and so feeling that like, oh. I had a grandmother who was of that faith and really singled me out and made me feel like something was deeply wrong with me, and tried to like baptize me while my parents went away on a Hawaiian vacation, and just created like a bunch of strangeness around that. So, and then as I got older, I had boyfriends that would be like, I'd love to date you, but I won't date you unless you get baptized. And so feeling that again. So like from my community and from friends, and just like, I constantly kind of felt like, well, I don't fit in. So I've struggled with that this life, of feeling like I don't really feel like I have friends who would be with me through the dark and the good. And then, you know, I had friends who didn't want to be with me through the dark and the good. And I did have some friends, two of my bestest friends, Jesse and Ivan, that really, I know that they are like great friends because they were there for me. They were there for all of me, and they accept and love all of me. And to know that I have that type of friendship on this life, I feel actually blessed and grateful. And so what I'm trying to say is, if you're a walk-in, people will leave your life, and that's okay. Just surrender and let it happen. No one can understand what you're going through, and many people, they don't have enough empathy or consciousness or ability to comprehend it. And, you know, so that just is part of it. But this is like weeding a garden. We have to get out the weeds that are not meant to be in the garden of your life. And some people are supposed to be in your life for a season and a reason, and then that season is over, and it's like the foliage, these are your leaf people. They fall from the trees and it's gone. And some people are trunk people and root people in your life, and they're supposed to be in your life for a long time. And so just learning, when you have to think of this, if you've had a walk-in, you've just had a massive timeline shift. You're now here on the planet, and you're like here to play, and you are not fucking around. You know, like I truly believe that walking in requires so much. It requires your genetics, your DNA. It requires you to have an open-mindedness and creativity. It requires you to have an empathic nature and an ability to perceive. It requires you to have a ton of support in your family dynamics. It requires you to have the time and space to be able to integrate this experience. It requires you, you know, it's just, it is, I would say it's one of the most overwhelming experiences of my life. I would say most people in my life say that that is having a baby for the first time. I don't know, I haven't had a baby yet, so it could be as difficult as this. But having not had a baby, I can say that it is the most challenging thing that I've ever gone through. And it happens for a reason. It's happening for a reason. And you have been selected or chosen based on so many factors that are in your control and beyond your control, and maybe even written in your soul contract. And you are here to help and assist humanity. And likely you already cared about that, and you were already on that path of helping and assisting humanity, because that is what makes you available and a match for an experience like this. And so instead of being heartbroken and grief-stricken that your plans and what you thought you wanted is now completely shifted and you're now doing this new thing, what you can do is realize, okay, this major thing just happened. This being that I now feel in resonance and connected to is here to help me heal my family lineage, to heal my DNA. I'm going to do that work. I'm going to heal all parts of me, all my inner child wounds, all the places that I am not self-loving, all the things that I'm afraid to share with others, all the places I'm playing small, all the places I don't feel worthy. I'm going to heal all of this, and you'll have to get to the place of like just accepting and trusting that God is there in every moment. And then everything that you wanted before, it's now even more in your grasp and more possible because of what you have gone through, because of what you have achieved and overcome. And now likely you're surrounded by people who truly support you and love you, and the people that were just in your life to use you in some way to benefit them but didn't want to be there when you needed them, those people are now gone from your life. And that's a good thing. As painful as that is actually a good thing. And so it's just a matter of understanding that there is a rhyme and there is a reason and there is a purpose, and likely you have a huge soul mission and you're here to make a deep impact on the world. And so remember that as you're going through all of the healing part, and know that all your dreams that you had are feeding back in and weaving now. And I've even experienced this in my own life where I'm like, oh my gosh, now I get the best of both worlds. And that is the gift back to you for being willing to serve humanity on a higher level and to do the deep work. It's so funny because my dissertation at the University of Denver, part of one of the chapters is called The Poetics of Deep Work. And I think that deep work is something that we all should do. I mean, I wish more people on the planet would be willing to go to the depths and look at our collective human shadow. But we can make it easier for people to do that by doing that, if we have the ability and capacity to do that. And then we can come back and share. And then people can have healthier experiences of awakening and elevating into higher consciousness, where they can have guides and teachers and friends and not feel abandoned along the path. So don't feel abandoned. If everyone in your life has run away from you, just remember that what you're doing is tremendous. Hang in there and allow your mission to be revealed to you, because it's very rare. It's not very common for a walk-in to happen. And when it does happen, it's not happening arbitrarily. It's happening for a reason. And that reason is a big reason and an important reason. And if you can keep that in your heart center and remember that while you're going through the hard parts of that experience, then you can make it to the other side, and you'll actually feel gratitude and thank you feelings towards the whole experience, because you'll realize how much more wise and discerning and loving and awakened and higher consciousness and more devoted and more patient and all the things that you now are, because you really went through it. And that's sad that we have to have this really deep misunderstanding and suffering on our planet for people to really step into the fullness of who they are and reclaim their sovereign divinity and spiritual sovereignty. But unfortunately, that's just the moment we're at on the planet. And so keep going. This is a message of encouragement. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I love you. I hope this has helped whoever it is meant to help, and sending love.